Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the PADAWAN Podcast, Apocaflix Movies All Star Wars Podcast. We'll break it down everything from the galaxy far, far away. Of course, that includes movies, TV, animation, comic books, novels, and everything canon and non-canon. Sometimes we kind of dive into that a little bit. And so, my name is Jake Berlin, aka Qui-Gon Jake, and I am the host of the PADAWAN Podcast. And I am joined today just by Brian Avalosino, Mr. Brian Fett himself. How you doing, sir?
Hello. I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Ready to talk some Star Wars and what we're reading currently. We're going to continue that because we currently are reading, and there's a lot of stuff coming out in the world of Star Wars as far as books go. And so I had mentioned last time that I was currently reading Alphabet Squadron. Since then, I have put that down, and I am now in the midst of reading Thrawn Treason, the third book in the Thrawn series by Timothy Zahn. And I'm probably, if I had to put a low ball on it, probably about 6 hours or so into it. So I'm coming up on that halfway mark because I believe it's only about 13, 14 hours long. If I'm correct. I could be completely wrong on that.
I think it was about 13.
Okay, yeah. And you were reading Thrawn at the time, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're either reading it or possibly even done with it, correct?
I am done with it.
Cool. Well, since you are done with it, of course, non-spoiler thoughts, just quickly a couple things about it. Maybe, is it your favorite of the three so far? What did you think of it overall? Just a quick little recap, and maybe do you want to see more from it?
So it definitely is my favorite of the three so far. I am definitely happy with what I got. I'm loving the Chiss Ascendancy. That is basically like Thrawn's native species. They're kind of like version of the Empire, if you will. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of secrets and a lot of stuff that I like the kind of like draw that makes you want to know more. But yeah, no, overall, I really, really like this one. Definitely the best one in my opinion of the three.
Interesting. So, as I mentioned, I'm close to halfway through, and my vibe from it though so far, and you know my feelings in the first two. I don't even think I finished the first one. I read through the second one, and then I'm in this one. And my issue with the books is that there's a lot of, in movie terms, there's a lot of downtime, right? There's a lot of time that, if we were to relate it to a film's runtime or something, that some of that time could possibly be cut out, or they could do something to amp the moment up or kind of keep you more interested in. I find myself dozing sometimes and kind of drifting away, and I listen to this at work and I listen to it in the car, and so there's moments where I'll listen to it for a good 20, 25 minutes, and I'll be like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this right now. I'm not in the mindset to do it. It's not really keeping me interested at the moment. But there's other times where I'll listen to it for a couple hours and I'll be interested in it. And so I'm kind of waiting for that moment to like kick it into high gear for me. And it may come directly from my expectations of the book. It may come directly from just having a certain mindset towards the Thrawn character, and specifically Timothy Zahn as a writer, because the Thrawn trilogy from the expanded universe is the all-time great as far as legends go, and so I guess I've just kind of been waiting for something like that. And although I do love the connections that this book has to stuff that we know so far, as for us Star Wars fans who watch everything and kind of read everything, there's a lot of cool connections and pieces that are falling into place within this story. But I guess there's just something that's kind of holding me back from being like, I want to finish this book right now. I want to take 2 days to finish it and just knock it out. Whereas I'm kind of just taking my time with it because it just feels like there's moments where I'm interested and there's moments where I'm not interested.
Well, I think by the end of it, you'll be like, oh, okay.
I hope so, because I mean, you and I both feel the same way about Thrawn, and also, well, I know that he's your favorite Star Wars character, but I mean, he's up there for me. And like I'd mentioned, the Thrawn trilogy is my all-time favorite Star Wars property on paper. And so I've been connected to the character for a long time, but I think it's just, I guess it's just a little bit of an expectation. I want him to be so, like, I want him to be portrayed so good in canon and used to his fullest potential, and that may be playing in with my expectation and anticipation for these books. And so I hope that I by the end I'm loving it, because I know that there's some really cool stuff that may happen, because the timelines are kind of starting to match together and things are starting to kind of fall into place with each other, and I hope that it kind of all comes crashing together by the end of this book. So
yeah, no, I hope that happens for you too.
Before we move on to the next topic, I wanted to plug it a little bit. So we do have the canon connections here on Apocaflix, basically where we take a book like Thrawn Treason or a comic book like the Vader run that we were doing for a while before that ended, and we basically break it down in a video. We kind of go full spoilers. You can think of it as our spoiler discussion on that property, and we're definitely going to be doing one for Thrawn Treason. That'll be with Brian and or myself or Jacob, and we'll kind of be going into it in depth and kind of talking about the main stuff that happened, not all of it, because we do want to keep it somewhat short and flowing as far as the discussion goes, and we'll kind of be diving into everything spoiler heavy for that. So look out for that. Hopefully next week. It all depends on when Jacob or myself are able to finish it, but yeah. So let's move on to our next topic, and we are here to talk none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi, because it is official. It has been locked down after much speculation and rumors and word that has kind of ran rampant over not just today, but the last so many months. Ewan McGregor himself has signed on to return as the character for a Disney Plus series for Lucasfilm, which it will be the third Disney Plus series in the world of Star Wars. Of course, we have The Mandalorian, which comes out in just a few months, Cassian Andor, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. All this speculation is finally buried as it has become official, and we're going to take the time to talk about it now. This is some very exciting news. Obviously, before we get to our opinions and thoughts and kind of what can happen and where we want to see it go, he was the most popular part of the prequel trilogy. I mean, he's the one thing that kind of stands out through all three movies and is like, yeah, that's the one thing that never took downtime, or, the character always kind of stood above the rest, and obviously followed what Alec Guinness was doing in the original trilogy and kind of building on that. And the way Ewan, as I got hammered in the comments last time, Ewan McGregor played him, it was something that left a lot of fans just wanting more, and it's been wanted for a very, very long time. And so, before we kind of dive deep into it, Brian, just initial reaction, as you were scrolling through your social media or whatever, and you click that refresh button, all of a sudden it just says, Ewan McGregor returning as Obi-Wan Kenobi for Disney Plus. What is the first thing that pops up into your head?
So I had two things pop into my head. First one was, I don't believe it until I officially hear it from Disney's mouth.
Fair.
Second, it's about damn time.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, we've been hearing about this forever. And it was like one of those things where it's like, dude, it's taking so long. It's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that little bit of hope, but it's never going to happen. Then it slowly started picking up again. Slowly start picking up some more. Then it kind of died. And then it was like, boom, all right, here we go. And again, everything's saying official. I'm not getting excited until I see him say he's doing it, walking out on stage. I mean, it's pretty much pretty much been confirmed, but I want someone of hierarchy saying, here you go. It's
fair.
happening.
That's fair. I definitely feel the same way, but the difference between this one and previous rumors and reports is that multiple sites are going after this. Multiple sites are kind of, like adding a piece of the puzzle here, adding a piece of the puzzle there. The initial report came from Deadline, and they confirmed it because there had been rumors all day long that he was gonna be returning, that he was gonna sign on for something down the line, but nothing really became official until Deadline dropped their stuff and basically confirmed that yes, he is going to lead an untitled Disney Plus series. He will be returning to the character. No timetable as to when, but the report said that everyone should expect an official announcement at D23, which is next weekend. And so the timing makes sense as far as announcement goes, and it's quite interesting because there has been a lot of speculation around him as far as him returning to the character as a Force ghost in the Saga movies. The Disney Plus thing kind of popped up a little bit later on a few years ago, and we kind of ran with it a little bit because of what was happening with their streaming service. But it makes sense. It completely makes sense with what they're going for. And this isn't, like you had said, Disney hasn't come out and like officially confirmed it, but to me it's confirmed because typically with this kind of news, sites like Deadline, sites like Variety, even a Collider who's getting in the Scoop game, they confirm stuff and it becomes official. And so to me, it definitely feels real. It feels like it's an officially slated thing that we will be getting him in the character in a Disney Plus series, maybe a Force Ghost thing this year. And I don't know. I mean, it's wild that, like you said, it's finally over and done with after all of this talking about it and all of these months and weeks and even years about him returning and him teasing it and talking about it and like the ideas they have for it and him doing the Rebel stuff. And, it makes complete sense that this is finally happening. I think we all knew that it was going to happen at some point, but to have it finally happen is like a very, very big breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it's hard not to believe it because it's perfect timing for them to line it up with D23. It's kind of like when things at Comic-Con start to break like around that week before it actually happens. Mm-hmm. And it falls right into that same thing. Comic-Con, D23, Star Wars Celebration, like all those big type of announcement showcases, there's usually something big that falls a week before it happens. And this seems like it's that one.
Yeah, so, outside of initial reactions, let's kind of dive into the more important stuff here. And let's say that it is a Disney Plus series, and I have my ideas as far as what they're going to do. What is something that, let's say it's an 8-episode season, and it's not going to be like a limited series. Like, say they plan on doing a couple seasons. If it is a success, what is something that you can see this series being about? Where is it set? When is it set? Possibly, just kind of following the character from where we left off with the Revenge of the Sith before A New Hope. And so, what is something that you kind of think of when you think of an Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus TV series?
It would make sense to take place after 3 and before 4. They have been heavily hitting into that time frame.
Yeah.
Around anywhere from 2 to 4. That time frame has just been like boom, boom, boom. Like everything seems to be coming out around that time frame. And you could always like digitally de-age someone, but like it makes sense that he's older now. He's closer to, he's not, I shouldn't say he's closer, but he's more aged, if you will, towards episode 4 Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's not like freaking ancient or anything, but he's older, so it would make sense as far as like time frame from the events of happening. Like you've got this older guy after the events of 3, and filling in that gap. And like I said, they keep hammering that time frame because it's such a big gap.
Yeah.
So to me, it just makes the most sense to do something around that time. Would I love to see, like, Clone Wars type stuff, like where he's like going on missions and stuff like that? Absolutely. Is that kind of like secretly what I wish for? Yeah. But realistically, it makes the most sense to be in between 3 and 4. And everyone's always wondered, like, what did he do after he gave away baby Luke? Like, from the point of that to what? It's like almost like 20 years or something.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah, so I mean, it makes the most sense to fill in a 19-year gap.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I think it definitely is going to land between 3 and 4. It's the time period that is spent with him that nobody really knows about. We know what happened to him before Episode 1. You know, how he was taken as a baby and brought through the Jedi Order, the Jedi Academy and stuff. And then we saw what happened with the Clone Wars between 1 and 2, or excuse me, 2 and 3. We saw him become a master very early on in 2. At the end of 1, of course, and then 3, and the last thing, like you said, was him on Tatooine, making sure Luke had a family, and so it just makes complete sense for the series to follow him during that time period, probably closer to 4, I would imagine. Maybe not as close as something like a Rogue One or even like a Rebels. But maybe like somewhere directly in the middle, like 10 years after Revenge of the Sith or something like that, and it's him basically looking over Luke and possibly going on some missions and doing some stuff in secret, maybe having contact with Yoda because they're both out there still and they know they're both out there. We know that at the end of 3, Yoda teased that Qui-Gon learned the ways of coming back from the dead as a Force ghost. And so I have no doubt the TV series is going to bring back Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon, and we're going to see his Force Ghost style in there. And so,
can you imagine getting Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon?
He's 100% coming back. I'm putting money on it right now. He's 100% coming back as the character. There's no way that they drop something like that at the end of 3 and say an old master, an old friend has learned the ways of immortality. And, he goes, your old master, he says Qui-Gon. And so there's no way that they don't touch on that. And so seeing the ways of how they become a Force Ghost. Say it again?
I said, I like your confidence. There's no way.
No, I think it's the one thing, obviously we want to see obviously we want to see something like Maul and Obi-Wan go at it. And we know how that ends in Rebels, those of us who watched it. But outside of the Maul and Obi-Wan, feud, the one thing that is like has to be included is Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Like it was left, it was just left on such like a, kind of like just a weird note, and I can't find the right word for it, but
unsatisfactory.
Yeah, or how about this, an unfinished note? Like, it just felt unfinished. And so, including that, and it doesn't have to be all season long. And, maybe Obi-Wan is still very much learning to become that master that he is in Episode 4. And Qui-Gon is the one teaching him to become that. Qui-Gon is what Obi-Wan is to Luke in the original trilogy. Like, he's kind of there looking over his shoulder, kind of teaching him in the ways from beyond the grave. And so it would make sense for me to have that in there because it was left on such an unfinished note at the end of Revenge of the Sith. And it almost feels like they always had this plan in the back of their head, like, okay, we're going to drop this here and we're going to go back to it at some point. We just don't know when. And that lends itself very, very well to a TV series. And I love this, that's a TV series and not a movie, because there's so many opportunities and so much time to tell stories. You have 8 episodes, you have 10 episodes, you can have 2 seasons, you can have 4 seasons, rather than just having like a 2-hour movie and having one plot. you can play with so much more inside of a TV series, and it's really, really exciting that they're going with this over a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get like an 8-hour movie almost, essentially, if it's hour-long, 8 episodes. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense for them to do it. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it in Master and Apprentice, they even, like, talk, like, Qui-Gon's actually, like, with him as a Force ghost.
No, that's from a certain point of view.
Oh, that's right.
That was
right.
the Claudia Gray. That was the Claudia Gray short they wrote. And so, for you listeners who haven't read From a Certain Point of View, you don't necessarily have to read the entire book, but there is the book is 40 stories from episode 4. It's all based within episode 4 of outside characters or something within the storyline that kind of ties into that. And I know that, if I'm correct, Brian, you were kind of disappointed with that book, I guess you could say. It didn't really like live up to the hype as much as you thought it would.
Yeah, well, it had, I felt like, a lot of unnecessary things.
Yeah, and so I really enjoyed it. And yes, there were some stories that I didn't really care for, but I really enjoyed it myself. And if you want to hear some Force Ghost Qui-Gon stuff and Obi-Wan stuff, read that specific story in From a Certain Point of View. It's called Master and Apprentice, and that led to the book Master and Apprentice. And so, but yeah, it's super relieving, and it's something that, now that this has become official and it's confirmed, and obviously we don't know when it's coming, because it could end up coming in like 3 years' time, because I imagine Cassian Andor is going to come first. We're going to have a lot of time to speculate, a lot of time to learn things, a lot of time to kind of dive into like what to expect, who can show up. Is it going to be Force heavy? Is he not going to have his lightsaber and not use his powers? Because at this time period, the Jedi are supposed to be dead. They're not supposed to be there. And remember, for us who watched Rebels, at the beginning of Rebels, nobody knew Jedi were around. Kanan was an anomaly, right? He had these powers. Nobody knew that they were still there. Everybody was shocked when he showed up. And if Obi-Wan is set before that, Obi-Wan's not going to be able to use his powers very much. And that leaves some very, very interesting plot lines if he doesn't use his powers, because all we've seen Ewan McGregor do is use his powers as a Jedi. And so it could be a very different style and approach to the character because of the time period they tackle.
Yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan was always a master, like, with his, obviously, force powers and his sword, but he was a very good, like, not manipulator, but the way he spoke, he was very,
politician.
Like, yeah, I mean, it was very precise and stuff, and I feel like that could be a lot of what we see, just in the show, is him maybe using his ability to get his way around things by speaking.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah.
It's funny because I can just hear, whenever you get into like certain things about like Qui-Gon and stuff, like the excitement just rise.
Well, I mean, my name is Qui-Gon Jake, for God's sakes.
I'm aware, but I'm just saying, like, it's exciting.
So before we get out of here, because we've spent a solid 20 minutes talking about this, and we're going to spend a lot more on this. Don't worry about less of a conversation on this topic. We're probably going to take our next Padawan to do so and get Jacob on board, or Keith and Gio, and get their thoughts as well. But before we get out of here, Brian, I wanted to ask one simple question, and I know I'm putting you on the spot on this, but if there's one character outside of let's say Qui-Gon and Luke's uncle, played by Joel Edgerton, which I hope he comes back, which would be amazing. Outside of those two characters,
those two like constantly like arguing,
yeah,
and
totally.
They ended up having a hatred for each other. Like,
yes, but we don't know when that happened, and this series could very well tell that. But outside of these two characters, who is the one character you think is going to show up and you want to show up?
Oh my god. think I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow worked Bail Organa into this.
Yeah. He's a good choice. Really good choice. Well, because remember, he dropped Obi-Wan. He didn't drop his name, but he talked about Obi-Wan in Rogue One.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't. I have a hard. I don't think it would happen, but like I would love to have like the Emperor looming somewhere. Just
that'd be cool, like a side story.
Yeah, just
that'd
like
be cool.
some. Like I don't really need Darth Vader. Like
no, I don't think he'll show up. I mean, it would be quite interesting if he did. Like maybe there was a middle meeting between the two of them early on. Like just very well could be.
Or just like okay. I just had one, but I'll let you say yours first.
Well, so you just said Vader, and I want to touch on something real quick because the comic line, Star Wars is the basic original Star Wars run that they're doing that's been going on for a while. It touches on Vader finding out that Obi-Wan's alive, and he's sought out by Boba Fett. Boba Fett finds out, and so that could play into it, which would be very cool. But for me, the one that I think is going to show up, I think Yoda's going to show up. I do think that Yoda's going to show up to play devil advocate of what you're saying with Bail, because I think Bail is probably the highest probability to show up. I do think Yoda will show up, whether it's just a looming voice in the atmosphere or them, talking to each other via Force Ghost, or maybe Obi-Wan travels to Dagobah. I mean, who knows? I do think that the character I want to show up, and I think it's like
I know you're gonna say
the perfect situation to show up. Ahsoka. This is the prime position for her to show up in live action. Like, just imagine a mission where Ahsoka, because at this time, Ahsoka is Fulcrum. She's Fulcrum. She's kind of doing the beginnings of the rebellion, right? She's kind of, tying a bunch of things together. She has connections with Bail Organa, and so she's out there doing stuff. There very well could be a mission where she finds out Obi-Wan's alive and is like, I need your help. Like, I need your help doing this. And we could see this badass partner thing go down with the two of them, and I will lose my crap and I will die happy that night. Oh my goodness. That would be amazing.
I literally, right after I said it, that's why I stopped, because I was like, oh my god. This is what
it's got to happen. It has to happen.
You're right.
She is, and it's funny because 11 years, and I know it's an odd number, but 11 years today was the time. It was when she debuted as a character in Star Wars. But it's the perfect spot to have a live action Ahsoka show up, and it doesn't have to be huge. Like, she could just be a character where she helps out Obi-Wan with something. Like, maybe he's searching for something, and she has the means to get it. But I think it would be a huge. Or maybe Obi-Wan works for her, because she is Fulcrum. She's Fulcrum. She's the one leading it all right now, kind of, adventuring out and trying to start this thing that happens down the road. It makes sense. She's the one character that all of the Star Wars community wants to see in live action. Not just me. Everyone wants to see this character in live action, and I think it's a better decision to do it in TV rather than film, and I think it'd be a huge disservice to not include her in any form.
Oh, you said it. It's literally perfect for her to show up in. It's perfect, because it always kind of was like, oh, it'd be so awesome if she could show up, but it never like really made sense.
Yeah,
this would be perfect, absolutely perfect for her to show up in.
And we know that in Rebels, she pops up at the end of season 1, and that's kind of like, I'd probably say like maybe out of the 19 years, probably like 12 to 15 years after Revenge of the Sith. What is she doing for the previous decade? Like, where is she? What is she? We know that her book kind of showed a little bit of it, but where is she and what is she doing at that time period? Obi-Wan's out there. Maybe she learns of Obi-Wan being alive. Maybe she learns of these twins that were born from the spawn of Vader, or maybe she learns that Yoda is out there, and so it makes complete sense for her to show up. How? I don't know, but I think it would just be a huge mistake on their part to not include her in some capacity, especially because in the Clone Wars series, Obi-Wan was just as much of a master to her than Anakin was. And so for them not to have that reunion again, I mean, it would break my heart. But first of all, I think it's important to have that reunion because of all the time they spent together.
I'm literally imagining this right. What if we literally met Ashley Eckstein and she knew this and we just didn't know? That would blow my mind.
If someone else plays her other than Ashley Eckstein, I'll be very, very disappointed. And I have some ideas as to who can play her, but I think it'd be a very big mistake for her not to play the character after voicing her for so long and being such a big advocate for Star Wars and the character. And so, I mean, we have plenty of time to talk about it, but it would be pretty incredible to see not just Ahsoka show up on screen, but Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka show up on screen alongside of Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, God. I'm literally just... Can you imagine her just showing up and then, if we ever got to see it, her stance with the two white lightsabers?
Oh my God. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely. Don't even get me started, man.
Oh, my God. Fighting along freaking Obi-Wan. Oh, my God.
That'd be absolutely epic. Now I'm all giddy and smiley and whatnot. Oh, this is so much fun.
I'm literally imagining just this fight scene with the two of them, lightsabers drawn, and just going at it. Oh my
so
God.
Cool. So freaking cool. All right, well, on that note, after our excitement has kind of hit the peak here, that is the Padawan for today. We spent a lot of good time on Obi-Wan Kenobi because the news did just drop, and again, we're going to have lots of time to talk about this, and we have a lot of things to say, not just Brian and I, but Jacob, Keith, and Gio as well, and I'm going to make sure to get them on the next episode. That way we can kind of dive into it and talk about it because it is some massive news, not just in Star Wars, but the movie world in general because of how beloved this character is to everyone. And so, yeah, and you heard our Thrawn talk as well. I'm going to cut that together and make sure that is included in the front of this discussion. But for now, let us know what you think of it down below in the comments. Love to hear from you guys and see what you guys think about this news and what you kind of expect and whatnot. And as well as Thrawn Treason. And if you guys are reading it and what you think, if you finish it, what you think and where it ranks, leave that down there as well. Non-spoilers for any of those who have not read it yet. As always, like and share this video. Give us some support there. Hit that subscribe button. Also, a quick little mention before we get out of here. We are now on Patreon, and so there are some cool little benefits up there on Patreon that you guys can be included on and become part of the team as far as topics and discussions go. Make sure you check that out and see if anything attracts you as far as any of that stuff on Patreon, and we really, really appreciate that, of course. So Brian, again, as always, thank you for joining me on the Padawan today. That is Brian Fett. I am Qui-Gon Jake, your host. This is the Padawan Podcast for Apocaflix Movies, and until next time, may the Force be with you.